America is used to winning wars. But this fight, especially for its president, is different.
I've seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television in faraway lands. I've never seen them in our country.
It's been a sharp learning curve for Donald Trump. 2 months after the first case of coronavirus landing in the US, the president is now faced with an infection rate higher than anywhere in the world, and a hospital system crippled by the sheer number of patients.
Nothing would be worse than declaring victory before the victory is won. That would be the greatest loss of all.
We're looking at very large numbers of deaths in the United States over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Professor Ian Lipkin, known as the virus hunter, is one of the world's leading infectious disease epidemiologists. He fears this virus will cut short many lives. It's been predicted that the loss of life in America could be up to and over 200,000. Do you think that figure is reasonable?
I would like to think that we could hold it down to a number between 1 and 200,000, which is already a tragedy. But the idea that we might lose as many as 2 million people is just, it's just inconceivable.
It is an unthinkable figure, but this virus is frighteningly infectious. Even Professor Lipkin, who understands more than most how to avoid it, is another of its victims. What are your symptoms?
Well, at this point, all I have is a residual cough. When I first became ill, I started with a cough, and then I developed a headache. It actually woke me from sleep, and fever and night sweats and a few other things of that nature. It was very unpleasant. I'm now approaching day 14, and I'm feeling much, much better.
67-year-old Professor Lipkin is one of the lucky ones. 48-year-old Caius Kelly was not.
The text said, I'm sick, I'm in the ICU, but okay, and I can't talk. I responded and said, do you have the COVID virus? He said, yes.
We love you, I love you, and I thank you with all my heart. Bye.
Caius Kelly was an assistant nursing manager at Mount Sinai West Hospital in New York, where some staff resorted to wearing garbage bags as gowns. Caius's sister, Mariah Sharon, first learned of her brother's illness on March 18th, when he texted her.
I said, are you on a ventilator? He said, yes, and asked that I not tell our mom and dad. He did not want them to worry. And then it said, I love you, and it was an emoji with him and a big heart on his back, and he said, I'm gonna go to sleep now. And that was it.
Caius died alone 6 days later. He is believed to be the first nurse claimed by the virus in America.
It's upsetting the way we have ill-prepared for our front line and left them to fend for themselves. They just didn't have what they needed. They just did not.
And when you look back on that, is this what you expected of America?
No. It is devastating, and the idea that they're in Australia or any other country in the world would follow our lead in the way this has been handled makes me ill. There is nothing about the way that we have handled this that has been good, given the time that we had to prepare.
Look at this. Just completely empty.
Is it slightly unsettling to be living in the United States at this time?
Yes, it is.
Are you at all worried about your own health and the health of your family?
Well, of course. The United States has a really fractured health system, And Americans have a very strong view about freedom and liberty. When you shut down an economy, the threat is civil unrest. I think the increase in gun sales and the increased military presence and National Guard presence on the streets indicates that leaders share that view.
Few Australians have as close an insight into the mind of President Trump as Joe Hockey, Australia's former ambassador to the United States. During his 4 years in Washington, D.C., he enjoyed rare access to the president and his closest aides.
Unquestionably, the president was slow out of the gates. Donald Trump is not someone that readily relies on expert advice. Throughout his life, he's operated on gut instinct, and that's been very successful for him. But on this occasion, you have to take the expert opinion. Whenever I've met with him, it's clear that he is very careful about his personal hygiene. He takes a view that his behaviour is what everyone should do, and therefore they won't get the virus. Well, that's changed.
Hockey is now permanently based in the US, and he records his morning walks through the empty streets of Washington.
Why am I documenting this? Well, because I want my kids to remember how significant this event has been, not just for the United States and Australia, but for the whole world. There's just no one around.
Are you tempted to come home?
I've started up a business here, and I've got to make it work. And you know, after 24 years of public life, where it's an endless sea of events and meeting people, I feel like a monk that's gone into a monastery, and it feels pretty good that we can take the moment to reflect. That, you know, hopefully it makes us better people.
You doing some home cooking?
Yes. I'm a shocking cook. I'm not bad as I can eat, but I can't cook. And, you know, I'm doing everything, washing, cleaning the bathrooms, washing the dogs, the whole thing. You know, my signature dish is rice and canned tuna.
The virus is changing how we all live and interact. As Joe Hockey watches his former colleagues grapple with the crisis in Australia, he says there is an important lesson for our country.
The world that we're going to inherit in, you know, from the end of this year on is going to be very different to what we've lived in. I think you're going to see the world divide into 2 or 3 camps. You're going to see America look inward about all of its supply lines, massively reduce its reliance on China, India and the rest of the world for a lot of its supply lines. What we want in Australia is to be there as a close ally and make sure that we're part of the American narrative and they don't leave us behind as they take on a very new direction.
America's iconic landmarks are now eerily empty. New York is the epicenter of its battle with the virus, but other cities will follow. Right now, this great Western superpower is seemingly impotent to an opponent that may take much longer than many think to defeat.
As long as this thing exists in the world, we are all at risk. And it will ping-pong back and forth with every season. And it may take 2 years. And God help us. I don't know what else we can do.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.